rattles like a son of a gun. Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you nut and bolt how to remove the turbo out of your Ford Escape. This turbo removal is very similar in the Ford Fusion or anything with the 1.5, 1.6. This is not a super difficult task, but there are a lot of nuance to this turbo and removal of these bits, like this stupid airbox, this stupid battery, all of this stuff. The way that they put it together and put it in such a small place makes some things difficult that need explanation. I hope you enjoy the video. My name's Clay with YouTube The Clay Way here in Grand Rapids, Western Michigan. While you're doing this, keep in mind that if anyone else can do it, you can do it too. I don't want you to burn up my algorithm, but I also don't want to waste your time. So removal portion of this video starts at about the 3-minute mark, maybe a little bit sooner. My videos are designed to be informative, entertaining, and inspiring, but you may not be interested in that. So help me out. When you find the part of the video you're looking for, turn the volume down, restart the video from the beginning, and let it play on your computer at nighttime while you're sleeping, or put on one of my sweet Clayway playlists. Super thanks, subscribe, all that jazz. Okay, well, I got a little junk drunk this weekend, and I picked up these two cars. This is a 2017 Ford Escape. But after doing some research, I found that it doesn't matter what Ford Escape or Ford Fusion, just as long as it's a 4-cylinder version. Might not be doing this turbo removal and installation video for you, but there are people who don't know as much as you. Or me, for that instance. But then I don't even know if I know as much as I know that I think I know about me. Did you just notice how easily confused I am when I confuse myself? Anyways, on with this video. This is one of those things where air goes in and happiness comes out. Really super nice car. The problem is, the guy told me that the motor was blown up because it sounds like the Kool-Aid man up, trying to jump out of the engine. Rattles like a son of a gun. Then it smokes even worse. Then it literally, you put it in gear and it won't go no mo. You can shut it off, restart it, then you should be able to go for a moment or two. What I'm wondering right now is, does it have a bad turbo or is it a bad motor? Well, I don't know. I think it's a bad turbo, but it could be the motor though. It doesn't matter. Either way, I'm gonna do a turbo today. Well, technically it took me a week, but it won't take you a week with this video because I'm going to show you the things you need to know. And probably a lot more. If it's the turbo, then you're good to go. And you're not going to replace the motor. If it's not a turbo, well, we'll make a video about that too. Here we go. Looking at yours and you were thinking, well, I've got to jack it up and get it out from underneath. Apparently, it comes out through the top. We're going to have to remove all this cowling right here, windshield wiper, transmission, and everything to get down to it. But I'm pretty sure this is probably pretty easy. Dear God, don't ever say that to yourself. This was hard as heck. But if anybody else can do it, you can do it too. Let's get on with this video. The first thing we're going to do, take a screwdriver, 15. You're not going to get a windshield wiper arm removal tool on that because Ford has to be special and use really big things. I like to use big things. Hey now! I wasn't blessed in that department. So luckily all you have to do is raise the arm up, start wiggling it back and forth, and it will pop off. You can tell when you're on the right track. You can tell when you're on the right track when you move it, and that doesn't move in the center of there. That means it's loose. Then you just place your hand here while you wiggle with your other hand right here. If that doesn't seem to be working, take your hand right here and push up and down until it pops out of there. When you're doing a big job like this, lay out your parts in the orientation from which they came off. What I don't film of this is going to be duplicate. So I'm assuming on the other side there's going to be a bolt right here, and this is one that we need to remove. This is a 10 millimeter bolt. Then we take a flathead screwdriver and we need to remove these little clips that clip the top to the bottom. So in order to get these clips off, you just pry them off with the screwdriver there, but you can get behind them with the pick tool and pull them out the rest of the way if you like. Now from each side, you have to pop it up out of the tabs. And 2 total 10mm bolts. Then I believe it should be loose. It does. I don't want to drop my bolts everywhere. 2 T15 Torx. Now this thing just quite simply slides out of here. That opens it a bit. I've got another idea. I'm going to remove this motor mount right here, and I'm going to pull this engine forward so it gives us more room up underneath that cowling right there. I'm going to remove a few things that may not be necessary to remove, but I'm going to remove them so I don't break them. These lines get really brittle and they will snap very easily, and we want to avoid any kind of complication. And also, you don't want to work around all this crap because our turbo's got to come out from back there. Now back here, there's a little clip, and it's a locking clip, and it comes out right there. On each edge of these clips, they have little tangs that you will be able to spring out and pull away, then pull off the locking clip. Now, I think the description that I'm going to give in the rest of the video is probably not as good as this one. These little clips are supposed to push down, and as you push them down, they flap out. Well, sometimes they don't want to flap out. So what you do is you push on the connector towards the component and then push on this. They're intended to be pushed on with your fingers and unnecessary to use any tools to get them removed. So I know for a fact that we're going to have to remove this tube, all of this tubing right here so we don't break anything. And I'm going to start right here with this clamp right here, and then I'm going to start removing fuel lines and stuff. We need to get all this stuff out of our way so we don't break anything. I say, pay attention, boy. You might miss something here, because sometimes I go a little bit fast. If that connector is wet, that means that that's no good. If you can't get these lines to remove, you're going to grab a pair of these pliers. Be careful doing it this way. You could break the clip. Most of the time, they should just push in with your fingers. You're going to push down on that clamp right there. And of course, I did this off camera, then put it back on. Don't be a dick like me and break your clamp by squeezing too tight. God, now I got to replace that thing. Same goes for this one. You can try to squeeze it with your hand to pull it up, but I ended up using the hose pliers to squeeze it. This one right here does not disconnect. This does not disconnect from this, or at least it doesn't seem to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this down. Then I find a security clip in there. Then I reach right down here, and at the end of it, you're going to fill the little lock. And you try to spin them as you push them towards the thing, and then you'll be able to raise it up out of there. You might be saying, well, you didn't show us getting that thing off. Can you see my eyes? I'm freaking blind. I learned to follow things with my hand. You can too. You still do it in the dark, don't you? Or do you look in the mirror at yourself? Now we needed to disconnect this one, so I ran my hand down there till I found that clip there, and hopefully I can just push it with my fingers to pull it off. It worked. And once I remove a couple of the little keepers that are pretty self-explanatory, I should be able to remove this whole thing out of here so I get it past everything. And nothing's broken, which this doesn't look like a very cheap part. Now we'll take a flathead, loosen up this clamp, and loosen up that clamp. Something to keep mindful of this tube right here. This is your turbo tube. If you do not tighten these clamps back down with some force, not using a screwdriver, probably an 8mm would be my guess, this thing will blow out. Now, before you go yanking and pulling this tube off, right down here, right in the back of there where my finger is moving, there is a 10mm bolt. And we need to undo this clip right here to remove this tube off of here. I should have started removing the air filter and the battery first. Would have made some of this other stuff that's coming up easier to get to. Okay, so I got down taking this apart quite a bit, and I didn't think too far ahead, but we're gonna need to take these 8mm out of this airbox. We're gonna need to remove the battery. Probably should do that anyways, I guess. Then that gets all this stuff out of the way so we can get around there and do everything. Okay, so you've got a band right here. You've got 8mm screws right here. You've got 10mm screws right here. You got 8mm nuts right here. You got a band that comes off there. I must say, back in the early 2000s, they had these Chrysler 300s and Dodge Intrepids. You had to take the wheel off to remove the battery. It was a pain in the ass. But yeah, this is a bigger pain in the ass. You've got a flathead screw that goes on there. Then I believe this whole thing probably comes up. I'm hoping. When you're trying to get this off, once it's loose, you can just take the screwdriver and do this. I wasn't sure, but I felt like this was just held down by rubber grommets. Okay, so I pulled this part out and I loosened the clamp back on the snorkel back there because I still can't get this thing to pull out. I know it's sitting on tabs. There's no bolts holding it down, but for whatever reason, I can't pull it out. If you're gonna get these off, you're gonna need to loosen them almost completely. I can't believe I'm having to make a video of the intricacies of how to remove the lower portion of a freaking air filter. There's a rubber bung there, there's a bung there, there's a bung there, there's dirt inside there. Yeah, this one was the one that was holding it up, so maybe you could push that off to the side and leave that in there. Okay, so apparently this thing lifts off of here somehow. I can't believe, once again, I'm making video of the intricacies of doing something super simple. This is ridiculous. I took a 10mm bolt out of here. Pulled the cover off of the fuse box here. Unlatch this. Undo this. Push this over to the side. This little clip right here. Then raise up this. Stupid. I'm tired of pausing my music for this video, so then we're going to remove these two 10mm. Here on the side, there's a T20 and a rubber bung. The hose for the master cylinder comes off like all the other hoses. Brake fluid's really corrosive, so we're gonna put down a rag to try to mop up what little tiny bit will come out. Took out my blow-off valve. One, because it's bad, and two, because it's easier to get to this clamp. Now I'm gonna use a hose tool to break the seal on it. Now it's a lot easier to get down to this 10mm bolt holding over this tube. Okay, so now I'm gonna use my pick tool again once I've got that clamp loosened up enough. If it's not self-explanatory, it's to remove that tube right there on the connector. So your fuel line disconnect tip is gonna be too long to get it off of there, so you just follow it down and remove it from down here. All right, so you may have never used one of these. This is a 3/8 tool. And what you do is you put it around the barb right here. Now, you're gonna push down on the line, which is gonna sink the little clips that are inside the line in there, and then you'll be able to pull it up. You are gonna lose some fuel doing this way. Now this gives you the ability to lift the tube up and get it loose and pull it off. Now that gives me the opportunity to squeeze on the two clips there and pull this breather hose right off that I obviously broke, and now I'm gonna have to replace. Now I'll remove these two 8mm bolts. Now going down right here, we're gonna see a clamp down there on the end of that. We're gonna remove that clamp, or loosen it up at least. Hopefully I'm gonna get away with using a 7mm. That worked. You loosen that clamp up almost all the way, and then you come over to this side, and you should be able to push it off as long as it's turning like this. Definitely something she never said. That's one hell of a long piece of pipe. I might as well take this tube off right here. It's gonna have to come off. Boy, she's wet down there. Something else she never said. That's all the oil from the front of the turbo. Gosh. Now we've got some space and we can finally see our turbo. Now it's time to take out the new turbo and see what that looks like so we know what we need to undo. We've got one of these sweet Chinesium turbos that came in 3 different boxes. Well, you can give me a message, send me a message, comment down below if you want to know how long this turbo lasted. I figure that turbo is factory and it lasted 120,000 miles, so if we get 80 or 90 out of this thing, we'll be doing good. I tried to get a used turbo for this, and it was insane. Everywhere said they had them. There were thousands of them, but nobody actually had one. So here we go. Here's our Chinesium turbo. It even came with gaskets. I do believe this turbo fits the Ford Fusion and other makes and models too. So it looks like what we have to undo is the exhaust manifold, the exhaust from here. So we're gonna have to take off them heat covers off of there. There's one Torx bolt here. I don't know what size it is yet. And this is, I'm assuming, an oil and possibly coolant line, which is strange. It's either oil in and oil out. I gotta hope it is, because I could smell coolant leaking out of this thing, burning up in the exhaust. So I'm hoping that's that, but I don't know. I guess if it depends on if it has a line on the other side. Oh, it does, or it did. Yeah, I believe oil and coolant run through this thing. At least I hope it does, because if it doesn't, we're foobarred. Oh, but look at that. You can turn up your boost on your turbo. Making that wastegate open more. Okay, what I should say is making that wastegate open less, because as your engine spools up and as it goes, this rod pushes this pedal right here and allows it to open, which is putting out the air that this is generating. So at a lower idle, this will be open a little bit. And as the higher idle goes, it pushes more force into that turbo, and that turbo sucks up more happiness and outputs a lot more happiness when this is closed. This is one of those moments that you're hoping that the little kids that assembled this thing knew where to set that rod, because I'm gonna have to get out a vacuum pump, figure out what it's supposed to be set at, and everything else. Hopefully I'll be able to put that here in the video. Okay, so if you wanted to check and make sure this linkage is adjusted correctly, you'd put a vacuum pump on here, and how this works is when the engine starts up, it creates vacuum here, which then pulls this rod and shuts this gate right here. The vacuum is controlled by the ECM. It's important that this functions, and without that, your turbo is going to be doing all sorts of weird stuff. For reference, when that's open, your turbo is not working. It's not sending boost to your engine. It's sending it out the exhaust. So that being open is not good. It won't work right. And it will be open if it has no vacuum. You shouldn't have to adjust this. Immediately when it vacuums, it should start closing that. If it doesn't, then you've got another issue and you need more vacuum right there, maybe a broken hose or something. Now to take this heat shield off, just so you know, you should take the coolant lines off that are feeding the turbo, but I couldn't get them out. There's probably 3 bolts, there might be 4. 1, 2, and 3. When you're gonna take them exhaust manifold bolts out, use an 8mm shallow so you don't break them off inside the manifold. This is probably gonna make more sense when you're actually doing it. This is a T30 bolt right here. You're gonna reach around and loosen that with the 1/4-inch drive. Which leads me to my next question. Have you ever gave the courtesy for a reach around? Well, I just gave you the courtesy to tell you. So hit the thumbs up and make a crappy comment down in the comments below. Algorithm bumps, please. These bolts, you're going to reach around underneath, and they're also T30. These are your oil drain bolts. Once I removed the turbo, I realized the two bigger holes here are coolant hoses, and this line that's going in the side is the oil line. I'm just looking at this before I get to taking this one off. I've got all my turbo bolts out of here, but until I remove these lines, I can't remove the heat shield. Now, I'm going to show you how I got these lines off. Obviously, I cut them, but I'm going to explain to you what I probably should have tried to do before I cut these. And once I got the bolts out that hold these lines to the motor. Getting that T30 bolt out was pretty simple. I just loosened it, then I used a magnet to pull it out so I didn't drop it. But what then I should have done was started wiggling the lines and stuck a screwdriver down the back of the motor and pried up on these. And the reason for that is when this line goes down inside the turbo right here, it makes a mushroom. This goes all the way down inside this hole, and it just was not popping out of there. I tried a lot of different things to pop it out of there. None of them worked, but I didn't try that screwdriver trick that I just told you about because I was worried about bending the mounting points and then having a leak when I reassembled this. We don't want that, so be cautious. Now you want to slide a catch pan underneath the back of there so it can pick up any oil or debris that comes out. Now I've taken a T30 and I removed that center bolt between the two large hoses. These are coolant lines that run up here, but I do have some problem with them. So I used a magnet to pull that bolt out of there so I didn't drop it. But now I can't get the lines out of there, and I'm going to show you why. So now I need to go back and remove the bolts. I'm doing this way so you folks don't have to endure the things that I had to endure. Just so you know, even though I got the bolts out that secure that line to the engine block, I didn't want to take the lines off underneath the intake because they were a pain in the ass to get to without removing a bunch of parts. So I ended up cutting them, but you should pay attention to this because more than likely, you're going to get your lines out. You're not going to have the same problem as I have, or at least I hope for your sake you don't. Okay, we take a 10 millimeter and we run it down here, and there's a bolt that holds on these two coolant and oil lines right here. Now with that bolt removed, you should have enough play to remove the lines off the turbo. I don't. Now my lines should have removed at this point, but they didn't, so I'm going to have to remove another bolt. We need to avoid every desire in your heart to bend these rear lines out of the way to get them out of the holder. I've never done this job before, and I looked on YouTube to see if there was somebody who did it, but nobody did, especially not the way that I'm doing it. So I AI chatted and asked, and they told me a bunch of stuff to take apart that was unnecessary. I specifically asked for a Ford Escape 2017, but that information was really no good. So you can't use AI to do this, even though it will tell you torque specifications, which was nice. But for the most part, you have to have some skill. These are the things that AI doesn't tell you or show you. I thought I needed to remove this coolant line. Come to find out, once I got the coolant line off of there, I actually realized there was a bolt that I could have got to without doing that, even though I'm not so sure that I could have moved the bracket around it because the coolant line would have been in the way. Okay, what we're trying to get down to is right here. This is what's holding them lines. This is the coolant line, I believe. Up here and probably below it is the oil line. Oh, I don't know if I need to remove this because I think right here underneath this tube right here is the bolt that releases this right here. I took a 3-inch extension with a T30 socket and put it on that bolt. Now it appears my coolant lines are fully loose and I can see them moving all the way back here, so that's good. Okay, so these still won't move far enough to get them off the turbo, so my suspicion is that the bracket is holding it, but it's in a place that you can't really bend it out of the way or anything, which I don't like to bend anything. So I'm taking my time trying to figure out how to get this back over so I can move it out. Well, looking right down here, it looks like I got that bracket behind the other plastic piece. Now at this point, I should have taken a screwdriver and put it up underneath the little tangs on my turbo mounting point for these coolant lines, because these coolant lines still were not popping out of the hole. I was fairly certain that they were still held on by something. I didn't know why they were stuck in the turbo, but they were stuck in the turbo severely. And even with everything loose and all the extra work that I did to get them out of there, I couldn't get them out. So I decided that I was going to cut them. So here's what I've decided to do. I'm going to cut these 3/8 lines and I'm going to compression fit them, because removing all of this stuff is just way too ridiculous, and it's moving well, but it's not coming out. And the only way that I can see to undo it down here is to take the clamps off both lines. And this clamp is easy to get to, but the clamp below it's not. So to me, a compression fitting will probably work the best, because we're probably only dealing with like 80 PSI, and a compression fitting will certainly repair that. So we're gonna cut into them. We're gonna cut into them square, and then that way we can remove that off of there. Okay, so this is a line cutter, and we can't use it back here because the lines are too close to one another. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the circle cutter to cut this line here, and then I'm gonna, about 1 inch or 2 inches back, I'm gonna cut the other line. So they're staggered cuts. The reason for that is when we go to put in the compression fittings, they're not side by side one another. If you don't know what compression fittings are, these are compression fittings. I do believe these are going to be 3/8 lines. I'll put a link down in the description so you can buy them for me, and I can make a couple pennies. All right, so I've cut these lines, and the reason that I cut them side by side was because I nicked this line right here with my cutoff wheel. Now, the son of a gun is loose, but I gotta assume there's some reason it's not coming out of this turbo. So it really wasn't a necessity to cut these probably for you, because yours should just come out. I don't know what the hell, but that's one way to do it, and one way to... I can see why it wouldn't come out, because it's stuck on this O-ring. And if you bent it, it probably would never mount in there correctly, because you'd end up bending that tab. But that's what's holding it up. That's insanity. But it's probably good, because it makes a good seal. Heat shield out of the way. And we have 3 bolts holding on this exhaust flange, 4 bolts holding on the turbo mounting point to the engine, and T35's T30 underneath for the drain. Now I'm going to use a quickie wrench to get these exhaust bolts out. And I didn't have any trouble with the 2, but I had to lay over the top of the hood, reach my arm around the back side of the exhaust right here, and loosen it up. When I first started this, I thought I was going to take the bolt out of the engine block drain right there, but I ended up having to remove the bolts from the bottom of the turbo to be able to do this. Get these drain tube bolts out. I'm going to use this T30 stubby right here. They're not very tight, so we should be able to get them out pretty easily. Okay, so to remove these 3 bolts out of this exhaust manifold connected to the turbo, to loosen them I used a long quickie wrench, and to actually remove them I used a short stubby quickie wrench. Now these 4 bolts are pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to use pneumatics to remove them. I've got the drain bolts out, I got the vacuum tube off of there. Don't forget to put that on when you go put this back together. Now we've got an oil feed line we need to remove. I'm sure that's a banjo bolt. That means don't lose it or over torque it. It's actually a 14. Is this the moment that I'm supposed to be hoping that this is actually the problem? Because that's the noise I was hearing.
10 seconds ago, you were just saying it was the fucking motor.
Well, that's because I didn't know that you could reach inside this hole and wiggle this like this.
Oh, change on turbo go bad.
If she's that loose, you got problems. Well, now that we know that this is the problem, or one of them, the good thing about this is whatever broke went down inside the exhaust, so it didn't go back inside the motor. And believe it or not, this turbo fan wheel actually feels excellent. But this should be one solid shaft through the middle of here, so I would assume this is kind of rare. Or maybe it's metal that Ford made, because they make junky metal. I don't know why they have to founder their own metal. They need to change the composition of their, what do they call that? Ollie jersey, I don't know. The chemistry they use to make metal, because their shocks and struts and everything has been breaking for years. Should probably get a Garrett turbo put in this thing instead of the cheap Chinesium. I've got a video installing this, but if you remember right, through the whole process, I was unsure if it was the turbo or the motor. So check this out. Well, here goes nothing. I know it's going to be low on fuel, so I'm going to cycle it 3 times. Oh, you're probably mad at me for not showing you if it started or not. But that's what the install video is for. My name is Clay with YouTube The Clay Way here in Grand Rapids, Western Michigan. If this video was helpful, please consider subscribing, clicking the notification, sharing my videos, giving me them sweet old thumbs up. If you've got a question for me, you can hit me up on Clay's AC and Auto Repair on the Facebook Messenger. I might not be able to help you with that old baby mama drama, but I may be able to help you with your whip. You can always ask. I don't know it all, but I try to help everyone that I can. Remember, don't be the next to them, be the absolute first of you. And if anyone else can do it, you can do it too. That's the black finger of confidence right there. God bless and have the best of days, folks.